In terms of all of that cash that you ended up spending,
I don't regret spending that great deal of money because
I went and did a bit of digging and I watched a lot of Scott's videos on his channel. And so what I actually did, and you don't know this, but I joined your community because I wanted to see what it was all about. And I like to do a bit of due diligence. And so
if you work in sales, you've got a script. And if you follow the script, which is the same script every day, you'll be the best salesperson on your team. But if you divert from the script to make your job more exciting, yeah, you might have a bit more fun, but you'll make less sales. It's the same thing with trading. If you've got a trade plan that works, follow it.
Right, everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Fair Value Podcast. Today we're joined by Scott Taylor from Evolution Markets. Very, very interesting trader, and we're going to learn a bit more about how he does things and how he got into trading. And I think we're going to learn a lot from him. So welcome, Scott.
Hey, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, thanks for being here. I just wanted to start going over sort of firstly what your motivation was for getting into the Forex space, because a lot of people come into it with certain motivations and then they change somewhere along the way. And I think for some people it has to change along the way, and some people jump into it with the right motivation. So what was your mindset when you first got into the whole Forex and trading space?
So for me, it was around 8 years ago now. And at the time, I was very much in the thick of it in terms of I had a fitness business at the time that I had ran for maybe 6-7 years up to that point. And it was a business that I kind of almost fell into from school going into sport at college, and then from sport at college going into sport and fitness and career-wise. And I ended up opening a fitness business. But I was always like an open book. I was always looking for more opportunities and was never kind of worried about having a fork in the road moment where I could say, well, just because I'm doing this now doesn't mean I'm always going to be doing this. So always looking for that opportunity. And it just so happened that I think I was just probably scrolling YouTube one day and an ad came up and I was like, this looks interesting. I knew nothing about trading Forex at all. So I went over to, I think it was like a weekend seminar in person that was over in Birmingham in the UK. Did that for 2 days, ended up signing up for the 12-month course. And that's what got me hooked. And of course, don't get me wrong, at the time, it was like, this can get you the lifestyle you want, financial freedom, sky's the limit. The way they were selling it was great. But obviously, I already had a business cap on me. And even though I was young at the time, I was still pretty wise to the idea that, okay, don't get me wrong, this could produce great results, but it's going to require a lot of work. But it definitely intrigued me, and it intrigued me enough to carry on going for the next 5 years until I found consistency while running a fitness business.
So a lot of people ask me, what is my favorite prop firm to use? And the answer is simple. It's Blue Guardian. Blue Guardian has the best prop firm conditions of any prop firm I've used to trade with. And they allow you to take an unlimited amount of time to pass their evaluation. Not only this, but they give you the Guardian Protector, which is a tool that stops you from hitting your max daily loss. You can also set it further down to stop you from overtrading for that day. It simply cuts off your MT4 account and you can't continue to trade if you hit more than that loss. So if you want to use the prop firm that I use, click the link down below and use the code GARTRADES to get 10% off your purchase. Let's continue with the video. How long ago was that?
So that was about 8 years ago I first stumbled across Forex.
Okay, so like 2015, 2016, around there. Yeah, dude, that's crazy. Because, I mean, a lot of us kind of fell into it during COVID. And I started trading just before then. But I think COVID really affected how people started taking trading as more of a potential viable way to potentially make more of an independent income. But it's interesting because most of those people that get into it obviously won't make it work just purely because they are, again, looking for like kind of like a side income and or like a side hustle. And in my opinion, trading's not really a side hustle. I don't know about you, but trading, especially if you're starting out, trading can't be a side hustle. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think at the very beginning, that's where most of the work has to be put in, just like anything. I mean, you go and open any business, you're going to have to really pull your finger out, especially to begin with. But with trading, not only are you potentially live trading, depending on how soon you jump into it, but also you've got the whole education side. You've got to educate yourself. And I've spoke about this before, that I think it's very rare that you'll come across trading, you'll pay for a course, so you'll find one mentor and you'll stick with that mentor and become profitable, because there's so many variables involved in this, right? But you could learn one way, one strategy, one style, or one course that something doesn't resonate with you, but you're still interested in learning Forex, but you're like, maybe not with this person. So you then find someone else, or you're recommended by someone else that you know, because you'll soon meet other traders, especially on social media. And 90% of my close friends all trade, whereas this time 8 years ago, I didn't know any traders. Which is interesting in itself. But yeah, you'll move from one course to the next, one mentor to the next, until you find something that you resonate with. And first of all, it has to be a strategy that you resonate with, and everyone's going to want different things. Some people want it really complex, and that's great. Some people want it really simple, and that's great. You just got to find what works for you. And there's a bit of trial and error involved in that. And that's why some people, it might take 2 years to be consistent. Some people might take 6 years, because it depends what options you go down and in what order. But also the teacher, you have someone that's an incredible trader but doesn't really come across well on video, doesn't really know how to teach that. So there is quite a lot of variables involved in that, as well as you've got obviously your own inner work to contest with, like your patience, like how much discipline are you putting towards this? Like you say, are you treating it like a side hustle or a part-time thing? Or are you going all in? Like, are you doing 2 to 3 hours a day of education, study, back testing, and forward testing versus someone else that might just do an hour on a Saturday? Obviously, the amount of work that each of those two people are putting in is going to reflect in how successful they are going to be in 3, 4, 5 years' time. And for me, I had young children. I have 4 children now. And at the time, I had 2 young children when I first stumbled across trading. And like I say, I was running a fitness business at the time as well, which was more than a full-time job as it was. But I've never been afraid of putting myself out there, living uncomfortably, because I knew, even back then, I was in my early 20s and I had that perspective that you're only going to succeed and push forward in life if you are uncomfortable. So, going and driving out that way for that full weekend, that seminar that I went to visit, that's putting me out of my comfort zone already. And I paid something like 2-3 grand for a weekend seminar. That was quite a lot of money. Not only that, but on that weekend, I decided to spend another £10,000 for a 1-year course. Again, I'm putting my neck on the line. I'm risking something, but I believed in what they had to sell. And I also had a real interest in it. My gut told me to go and do it. And I don't regret spending that great deal of money, because that was the first stepstone that led me to where I am now.
So you think, in terms of all of that cash that you you ended up spending, and I think a lot of us can relate, whether it be one investment or many different investments, a lot of us end up having to invest a ton of money before we get to that point of profitability. And I guess it depends on the person, depending on, what you come into the industry with, it's especially in terms of your mindset. And I think that's what really defines it at the end of the day. But essentially what I want to know is that that initial investment that you made, did it pay off right away, or do you think it was more just worth it in terms of the fact that it got you introduced into trading?
Yeah, it's the latter there. And I like the fact that you use the word investment, not cost, because it literally is like, if you're paying a great deal of money without an instant outcome, that's what I define as an investment. If that is going to return to you twice fold or however many X fold, and you don't know when, but some point in the future, that's an investment. And that's the way I saw it at the start before I handed over that debit card. And that's the way I see it now. And Forex education was very different back then. There wasn't really that many online courses, mentorships, communities. There wasn't really much on social media 7 or 8 years ago. You couldn't really spend $100 a month and get access to live coaching calls and stuff. You'd spend maybe 5, 10, 15,000 pounds in one go, and you'd physically go and see someone who would teach you. And for me, that was down in London. I don't live anywhere near London. So it was like a 3.5 to 4 hour drive that I did maybe 4 or 5 times over the space of a year. And then the rest of it, I was just kind of utilizing what back then was an online forum. Like back then, there was no Slack, there was no Discord, there was nothing like that. So it was very basic. And I actually did all of my studies, all of my chart work on MT4 because TradingView wasn't even something back then. But yeah, absolutely see it as an investment, and I don't regret spending that amount of money. Of course, I've spent more money on courses and mentorship since then, but nowhere near that figure.
Right. In terms of your journey, and a lot of you might know this, but Scott he runs a community called Evolution Markets, and before the podcast, I did a little bit of digging, maybe about 2 weeks ago. So I did a little bit of digging. I obviously went and did my research, and Scott's done a lot of interviews. You know, he's done interviews with Trading Nut, where I've been as well. He's done interviews with lots of different podcasts. So I went and did a bit of digging, and I watched a lot of Scott's videos on his channel, and I was intrigued right away by the way that you trade, and I really like, you know, firstly the methodology, but also the logic behind what you're doing, because I could immediately see, hey, this is why you're doing this. Everything you do has a reason, which obviously in certain other trading strategies, it's like, no, I'm just trading this pattern. There's no reason behind it. And so what I actually did, and you don't know this, but I joined your community. I joined your community because I wanted to see what it was all about, and I was curious, and I like to do a bit of due diligence. And so for me, I was actually blown away. Dude, your community is amazing. Congratulations, bro. Seriously. I went through most of your course as well, and it's really solid. What you've managed to do is create something that's really, really mechanical. And, you know, to some degree, it's a very binary strategy. It's very, if not this, then that. And it's very, like I say, like algorithmic. So I think that that's something that a lot of people aren't able to achieve. I think that that's way too difficult. And a lot of people look to have, you know, kind of like a back door for them to say, hey, this is my strategy. But if you don't do it exactly right with these exact conditions at this exact time, if you've maybe you were a bit too risky, blah, blah, blah. But with yours, there's none of that. You either did it right or you did it wrong. There's no gray area. And so I think that that's very commendable, because you can literally, you know, you can track the results. And I went back and I tested it, and it works insanely well. So I learned a ton from joining your community. So yeah, it's really, really awesome. So yeah, for those of you, I'm not sponsored by them, but it's a really great community. I suggest you check it out. Yeah.
Creating this high time frame strategy, just so you know, because actually when we first launched Evolution Markets, we were very much trade off the 1 minute lower time frame, and we would trade any time frame above the 1 minute for our market analysis. And me and my fellow coaches, we were consistent and profitable with that. But what we found when we started teaching is that most people really struggle with the complexity of strategies like that. And also, most people who want to trade either work full time or have another business, or they look after young children. So the amount of chart time that they either can or want to spend is nowhere near 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. So we were like, okay, let's put some surveys out there, some real solid surveys within our own community and out there on social media. By the time I had quite a decent following on Instagram, so I did loads of polls on my stories. And the feedback was really unanimous in terms of, do you want something simple and rule-based, or something complex with potentially more risk to reward? Do you want to spend more chart time because you love looking at candlesticks, or do you want to have more freedom and spend maybe way under 1 hour a day looking at the charts? And the feedback, like I say, was unanimous. So we went back to the drawing board while continuing to teach the strategy that was profitable at the time. But it took us about 4 months behind the scenes to create this very rule-based, more slower paced, higher time frame strategy. Like you say, it's either this or it's this. There's always going to be discretion, but if we can have a rule for everything and a reason behind everything, and really limit the amount of indicators and timeframes, like we're just using the 4 hour and the 15 minute, that's it. It's making it more accessible to people that are at work and those that want to keep it as simple as possible.
And you're trading, like you said, 4 hour and 15 minutes. I think that makes a massive difference in terms of chart time. Like literally, that is probably heaven for somebody who sits on the charts all day watching the 1 minute or even the seconds time frame. I think for somebody that has like other responsibilities, that's literally the ideal scenario. Like you said, obviously you did your market research on that, and I think that obviously going out and achieving something like that, what was it like creating almost a strategy from scratch? How did you get to the methodology that you found? And how did you manage to create something that ticks all of the boxes that you found in your market research, essentially?
Late 2022, we were obviously trading a multi-time frame analysis strategy with a 1 minute time frame entry model. And we were already using the 4 hours directional bias and trade building. And we would use the 15 minute in terms of a daily signal before we jump into the lower time frame. And I kind of caught myself during live coaching calls saying, well, if you really wanted to, you could just trade this right off the 15 minute if we get this, or if that happens. And I was kind of not really paying any attention to it at the time. Obviously pushed forwards a few months and we started to get the feedback actively on potentially creating this. But we had something in terms of the 4 hour for directional bias and trade building called the 2 candle rule. And those that are watching this that have been Evolution members for 6 to 12 months will know that we use the 2 candle rule in terms of when you get either a break of structure or what could possibly be a run on liquidity, we can't base that just off one candle alone. It's not enough information. And that's what became our 4 hour directional bias as it is now. We have follow through, no follow through, or strong follow through based on 4 hour fractal interactions. And in terms of the 15 minute, which is now our entry model, I used to say, well, I am not going down to the lower time frame at all until we get this 15 minute fractal sweep inside a kill zone. And that was a rule at the time. And that has become our entry model. And it's as simple as that. Obviously, lots of testing to show that it works consistently over time. But like you say yourself, you join the community, you've done some testing, and you've seen that it works.
Yeah, dude, it's actually shocking because I mean, like I said, I've spent a lot of time with many different strategies, and recently I started trading a specific way, and I got curious. I've been trading a specific way for quite a while now, particularly with ICT, and it just works for me because logic is there. It's not a case of I'm just trading this pattern blindly and hoping that it works out statistically, but you can see the logic and the reason why you're waiting for certain things on the chart. And I think that that's also why ICT appeals to so many people. Obviously, you traded before this. I think it was probably more towards like the smart money kind of side. But at the end of the day, it's all just liquidity. It's all just sweeps of liquidity, different terminologies for the same thing. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's the same thing. So
Exactly. We're all looking at the same market. So someone that might have studied ICT might look at this and say, he might look at this and say, oh, that's similar concepts to that. Whereas I actually, being fully truthful, haven't watched any more than 10 minutes of an ICT product ever. But obviously there might be some elements in there that are very similar because the way the market moves is through liquidity. And we've always been very heavy on liquidity since July 2022 when we launched Evolution Markets. We were like, liquidity is king. And like I've been talking about the 2 candle rule, which is now a directional bias for the 4 hour, that's based on fractal liquidity runs. Our 15-minute entry model is based on sweeps of liquidity. So we're very heavy on liquidity, and it is the way the market moves. But it is interesting. There's so many different theories out there. There's so many strategies that work, including lower time frame, smart money strategies. They work. It's just, does it work for you and your
Yeah,
lifestyle?
what I always say, it has to work with your lifestyle, has to work with your mindset as well. And it depends because different people have different things that they want in a strategy. Like you said, some people want the higher risk reward, but maybe obviously the win rate's going to be lower in that case. But they can handle it. Psychologically, they can handle the higher drawdown, but higher risk reward, higher profit at the end of the month potentially, and other people want, just simple higher win rate with something that they want more wins but smaller wins. I think that just depends on the person as well. You, like you said, you did a lot of market research before you changed strategies, and obviously before this, you've taught a lot of people to trade. Essentially, you've been the backbone of a lot of people's education. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you see people have with trading?
It's definitely emotional based, and it's just looking at the micro results too much. Like I'm finding myself in my own content just having to repeat myself, not out of frustration, but because I just want to help people, Like if someone takes one trade and it wins, they celebrate. Or if they take one trade and it loses, they think, oh, there must be something wrong here. When really even 10 trades is only a very small sample size to be able to say, well, this is my strike rate of that strategy. Well, it's not really, it's only the strike rate of 10 given trades. And people just have real lack of patience or just not the right perspective. And it's not necessarily their fault, because a lot of retail traders are 19, 20 years old, very early 20s. So not a lot of life experience. And fast forward 5 to 10 years, they'll be much wiser, much more experienced. And I think I was quite lucky in the fact that I stumbled into business quite at an early age. I was self-employed by 20 as a personal trainer. By the time I was 23, I had 6 or 7 employees and a thriving fitness business. And therefore, I had that perspective already kind of instilled into me that, okay, whatever I do today will dictate the future, but it won't necessarily give me a paycheck next month. But what I do every single day for 6 months, those actionable steps and following those processes with discipline, that's what's going to give me long-term success. And essentially, that was my first ever business, which 95% of all businesses fail. And I ran that business for almost 13 years before I sold it for a profit. And I think it's because I had that perspective that whatever I do today, it's long-term. And that's helped me tenfold in trading, because even at the very beginning, spending 10, 15,000 pounds on my first Forex education provider, who's saying you should be consistent within the first year, and me nowhere near being consistent, even in the first 3 years, I still was like, well, even if this takes me another 5 years, that time's going to go by anyway. I'm still making money from my fitness business, so I don't feel the need to trade to pay the bills, which is another topic. But just having that long-term perspective is, I think, one of the most important things to have, especially in the early days when you're learning a strategy. And it's something that I think most people struggle with.
Do you think that the environment that most people, or for example, the generation that's currently coming up now in the trading industry, do you think that there's going to be more successful traders or less? Because I feel like in terms of, obviously education, there's more stuff out there. But I feel like in terms of mindset, I feel like mindset has gotten worse just with the advent of social media and all of these other things that allow us to essentially get instant gratification versus delayed gratification, which is essentially kind of what you were talking about. People don't want to wait for the end result. They want results now, and they want the next trade that they make to be the one that makes them a millionaire, regardless of, hey, maybe I should just work on a system that will gradually get me there, and I can consistently create profits for myself. They essentially, it comes down to, those questionnaires when they're like, whether you want to would you get $1 million tomorrow, or would you rather get $10,000 every month for the next 10 years? And obviously people would say $1 million tomorrow, and then they say, oh, but if you got it for 10 years, you would have 10 million or whatever. I don't know the exact maths, but that's essentially what it boils down to. And I think that's why a lot of these prop firms and brokers make just a crap ton of money, because people, there will be more people always, like 95 to 98% of people will just not make it. Do you think that there will be more, or do you think that there will be less people that are successful?
I think the stats personally will remain very similar, because although there's more education out there, which is a good thing, and I'm friends with many education providers and communities out there, which I think is awesome to have. We brought the Forex community together when we launched. We kind of, communities kind of coming together and saying, if you want to trade the lower time frame, these guys are great. If you want to trade the higher time frame, these guys are great. And it's nice to have that positivity and bring that to the Forex space, which for so many years had a bad reputation and sometimes still does. In terms of education on mindset, I would say that potentially could increase, because there's a lot of guys out there like Riz Viper that's doing incredible stuff with his podcast. And a lot of it is emotional and psychological stories and advice that, trading veterans are coming on board to podcasts and like this, that what we're doing now. And we're delivering this education for free, which even 5 years ago didn't exist on YouTube. You didn't have access to that. And even if you paid for a Forex course, there was no psychological aspect to it. It was all technical. But do I think that positivity is going to increase the statistics of, those being successful? Probably not, because also when there is more confusion. And when there's more options, people can go from one community to another one, another course, another mentor. And before they know it, they've been in like 25 different mentorships. One, it's taken them a long time to go through that journey. But two, they end up having so much information that they perhaps should unlearn before they go and learn another strategy. Like our strategy, for example, it's a standalone strategy. So I would always advise, and it's not easy to do to begin with, but try and come in with a complete blank canvas, an open book, and not bring any of the previous indicators or strategies or theories that you've learned in the past, and start this from the foundations up, because that's what's built the strategy and that's what gives it that strike rate over a large enough period of time. But like, if people have learned from so many different people, they have so much information, they don't really know what to use and where to go. And they kind of, they're picking a bit from this person, they're picking a little bit from that person, and then they're wondering why it works for a week and then it doesn't work for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you've basically taught a ton of people to trade, and you've dealt with a lot of people. What do you think is the difference between those that make it and those that don't?
It's consistency and dedication. Like, I've been in courses and communities in the past, and each and every one of them, I was in for at minimum 6 months, but most of them over 12 months, even close to 18 months. So there's always going to be those few people that feel like 30 days is enough. And of course, there's always going to be those people that can only afford 30 days. And whenever someone reaches out to me and says, if I join Evolution for 30 days, will I learn everything and become consistently profitable and funded? I say, no, you will learn a lot, but of course, that's not going to get you consistent. I would recommend a minimum 3 months. And that's not trying to tie someone into a 3-month plan. That's just being truthful and honest, and not selling them the dream in 30 days. Again, coming from a fitness background, I was selling fitness memberships. I was selling personal training programs. And if someone said, I want to lose 3 stone in 30 days and said, is that possible? I'd say, which leg do you want me to chop off? It's possible to do that, but through a consistent and healthy regime and an eating plan, this is going to take you 6, 12, 18 months. Are you willing to put the work in? And most people are not. There's definitely a correlation between people joining a gym, going twice and then canceling 30 days later, and those joining a Forex community, learning it, doing a bit of that backtesting, trying to pass a funding challenge in the first 30 days way too soon, obviously, and then leaving the community after 30 days. I don't think we'll ever reduce that churn rate, no matter how much value we give. We're not going to stop that. But of course, that's a mindset thing, that I can do this person for 30 days and that person for 30 days. And everything I learn, I'm just going to chuck in one basket and hope that I can create my own strategy. That might work for 1 or 2% of people, but it's going to take a lot of time. And it's better, in my opinion, through what I've seen. And I've coached probably close to 2,000 students in the last 12 months. And I've been in communities over the past 8 years. The people that succeed are the people that have dedicated 6, 12 months and beyond. Our lifetime members definitely do better than those that are on a monthly plan. And that's not anything to do with the services that they get, because they get the same service, but because psychologically they've committed themselves to something, they feel that they should, for their own future benefit, put more dedication into that. Again, that goes down to the same as like fitness business. If I'd sold someone £1,000 worth of personal training up front, they are going to turn up every week for the next 3 months or however long that course is going to last. Whereas if I sell someone a $9.99 gym membership, I'll probably never see them again after their first run on the treadmill. So there's definitely a whole commitment aspect to that as well. The more you can commit up front, the more likely statistically, psychologically, you're going to commit yourself to it. But even if you're on a monthly plan, and not just with us, with anyone, I'd recommend going more long-term before you decide if it's not for you or not, unless something obviously drastically is not right with whoever you're with. But really commit yourself and think, okay, I'm not going to do this for 30 days, because if you commit yourself to anything for 30 days, it's rare that you're going to find any real results. But if you can commit yourself to kind of 6 to 12 months in whatever that is, trading, fitness, cookery, whatever it is, sport, you know that you're going to have a much better result at the end of that than hopping from one place to the next.
And is that something you struggled with at the beginning of your journey?
No, not necessarily, because like the first place I committed, I spent like £15,000, and that was a 12-month course. So I was kind of locked in, and that had an expiry date. That wasn't a lifetime membership. That was 1 year for nearly £15,000. So I was like, well, I've spent all this money and I've got an expiry date. So I'm going to make sure I utilize this to its fullest potential. And also I paid that money up front. I wasn't paying £1,000 a month. I paid it all in one go. But then after a few years, like fast forward a few years, I was in another community that I'm friends with still to this day, and I was paying something like $70 a month. But I was with them for over a year because I had already had that mindset previously that whatever I do and whoever I'm doing it with, I'm going to have to dedicate enough time to learn it technically and also to adapt my mindset to that strategy and whatever these people are teaching.
Was that out of interest? Was that community the community that only trades the 1 hour time frame?
No, I still think they do lower time frame stuff. They do
Okay.
anything from like the weekly analysis all the way down to the 1 minute, even like maybe 15-second entry.
Okay. But you were part of that community that only trades the 1 hour time frame, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in that one as well. That
Yeah.
was actually beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I was with them for probably close to 10, 12 months.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I was also there for about 10 or 12 months. Really good community. I have nothing bad to say about them. There's a few people that have beef with them for some reason. I don't know why. I was chatting to Kimmel the other day. I need to actually ask him about that. But a lot of people got a lot of value from there. And I think there's a lot of communities that you can pick different things from. And I think we're always going to... It doesn't matter who you are. You're never going to join and just straight away stick with one community most of the time. You're very lucky if you do. If you make it within your first, year or two of trading and you've just joined one community and you stuck with it and it worked for you, then you're very lucky. But I think having a few to draw from, and as you say, as long as you stick with it for at least 6 to 12 months, I think you can really pull what is actually intended from those communities from them. But I think it's just the way that people's mindsets are when they get into this. A lot of people's mindsets in general, when they get into this, is a make money fast kind of mindset straight away. And of course, that's not what this is at all, but that's what it's presented as in general on social media. So I think as soon as people get into it and they see that, this isn't a make money fast thing, they're essentially out, or they're looking for something else that is more suited to their make money fast mentality, which of course we know is going to 90% of the time be a scam. Because if you're trying to make money fast with anything, you're most likely not going to make any or lose most of it. So I think that that's probably why we see such huge churn rates within communities. And it's the same with the previous community that I was a part of running and coaching in. So I ran that sort of half and half with somebody else, and he kept saying to me, I don't know why all these people keep leaving at the end of the month. And I'm like, it's not something that we're doing wrong. You have to understand that's the nature of the industry. People join for 1 month and leave because they just simply don't have the patience or the discipline to stick at this one thing. They've kind of got that shiny object syndrome where they're trying to chase the next big thing that people are talking about. And that's just how it's going to be. And that's why I say, I think that there's a possibility that people are going to struggle a little more in future with trading, because the mindset of people in general, I feel like, isn't getting too much stronger, even though there is an influx of resources for them. Like you said, Words of Wisdom podcast. And this is also one of the reasons I do this, because a lot of people simply show the results of trading. They don't show what happened behind the scenes of it. And that's what this is about. You can hear people's conversations about what it really was like. And a lot of people think that there is no hardship, you just straight away make money, which of course is not realistic. And you'd probably be silly to believe that, even if it is for quite a while. But that being said, most people don't know a lot when they get into it.
Like you say, there's definitely more out there, there's more education out there, which is a good thing. I think with the way that social media is starting to train our children and our younger generation, like I have a teenage daughter and her attention span is way less than mine, and my attention span's not great. So it's like instant gratification, dopamine fix. And if you're kind of brought up on that, then you're obviously, your subconscious is going to bring that into everything that you do. Like, okay, I'm going to be a YouTuber, and then in 30 days, I'm going to make 10 grand a month or become a millionaire like Jake Paul. Well, Jake Paul was probably putting in the hours for 5 years before anyone knew who he was. But you don't see that, the behind the scenes, like you say. But I think definitely a lot of the younger generation are brought up on that instant gratification. And if you are, and then you're brought into some kind of education like Forex, then of course, and it's not your fault, that you're going to feel like, well, why should I wait years, or why should I work years to get something that people on TikTok or Instagram seem to be doing within 30 or 60 days? And it also doesn't help that obviously there is always going to be those people that are driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris and saying that I bought Eurodollar and then made 400 grand in one trade, risking 20% of my account. I'm like, that's great, but that's not really teaching something which is sustainable. Can you really sustain risking any more than 1 or 2% per trade? We know that as educators and those that have been trading many years, that that's not really something that's sustainable for most people. But if that's the content that they're consuming, then that's the way that they perceive the Forex industry. And therefore, oh, if I can make hundreds of thousands of dollars in one trade or potentially 1 week and go and buy a Lamborghini, then I only need 30 days to learn from this coach. Whereas again, if you're following kind of more, I'd say, normal people, real life people that are a little bit more transparent in terms of what it takes, wins and losses, risking 1% per trade, taking maybe 3 to 5 trades a week, then you can kind of, without being a maths professor, work out almost how much money you could make and how long it's going to take you. So yeah, perspective is everything, I think. And I think the younger generation are going to have a hard time because of the way that social media has kind of trained them with the instant gratification. And that's why I feel our job to do more podcasts like this, to spread the awareness and the reality, because when we were 17, 18 years old, we didn't have anything like this. And we had to learn through experience, which is perhaps why us in our 30s and 40s, it took us a little bit longer.
And do you think that social media content that is coming out surrounding the space at the moment, do you think that it is becoming more refined? Or do you think that we're losing more of that, kind of guru type of, content where it's flashing Lamborghinis, watches, etc., etc.? And do you think that it's getting more real in a way?
I do think it is. I think there's a lot less of the spammy, scammy Forex trader with the big, fake $100 bills on a Rolls Royce seat with the big fake Rolex watch. I think that there's always going to be that, and people creating fake profiles and pretending to be other people. But I think because there are more people like yourself and like Riz and like Kimmel who are doing more kind of podcasts with people and showing the real truths behind it and having conversations like this, and people are interested in this content, that's obviously being pushed to the top, and all the spammy stuff's being pushed to the bottom, and people are realizing people aren't interested in this scammy stuff anymore. They're not really watching that. And I think that's nothing but a good thing. Like, that's why I started my YouTube channel. That's why I really love to hook up with people like yourself and do these podcasts, just to spread that advice, because I think we're in the very early stages of doing this. Like, Forex podcasts weren't even a thing this time last year, really, were they? Like, the last 12 months, maybe 6 months, has become a big thing. And I think it's nothing but a positive thing to do that. And I feel like it's our duty to help those who have been watching the wrong kind of people, and also those that are entering the Forex education space for the first time, to kind of guide them a little bit and to give them the perspective that no matter what this person said, it's not going to take you 30 days. It's going to take you probably 1 to 2 years at least. But don't see that as a negative. That's college, right? You go to university, you're looking at 4 or 5 years for a degree, you've got debt and you've got no job opportunities guaranteed at the end of that. So why is this any different? See it as education for a career path that you've got to work your ass off and go out and get, regardless of which community you join.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same as any other career. You're not going to go to university and immediately think, hey, after 1 year of study, I'm going to become a millionaire. It's just not how it works. You're going to work hard. In fact, you're going to work way harder. But I think one of the trickiest things with it is that it's something that's kind of new. It's not something that's been around for a ton. I mean, traders have always been around, but it's always been, not as highly publicized of a job. And especially now that it's become more available to pretty much anybody who wants to get involved in it, I feel like most of the people just see it as a scam, because that's the most of the stories that is heard of. But also when you hear about the people that have been successful in it, it sounds a little like a scam, because you've worked hard for 2 or 3 years and now suddenly you're a millionaire. How is that a real thing? That's not something that ever happened in the past. That's not something that ever happened with, for example, your parents or your grandparents' generation. You work very, very hard for 30 years and invest your money very wisely, and maybe you'll become a millionaire. But when it comes to anything to do with the internet, social media marketing, when it comes to drop shipping, all these kinds of internet ways to make money, including trading, it's something that sounds crazy. And I think that that's what makes it really difficult to kind of introduce to your family and your loved ones around you, especially when it comes to saying, hey, I'm going to do this thing for 3 or 4 years and I'm going to make 10 or 20 times more than what I'm earning right now. And that's essentially, for example, me, that's what I brought to my family, and they were like, you're nuts. And it's a kind of a thing of like, it's a difficult thing to balance, because you don't want to go down this journey alone, firstly, without any support. But at the same time, you want to kind of protect yourself. How do you balance that? Like, I know how I did it, but how would you balance? In my case, I was just like, I eventually, after that, I was just like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And I linked up with a few other like-minded people, and we sort of bounced ideas off of each other. But I think that that's possibly one of the best ways to go about it.
Like, that's why community is great. And if you can find a small circle of traders that you can physically go and see, maybe once every 2-3 months at Evolution, we do a quarterly meetup. We did London in March. We did Birmingham in June, I think it was, July, sorry. and we'll do another one in October. We may end up flying over and doing different countries in the future, maybe next year. And that's really important. And even Discord communities, they're excellent, because if you have some frustrations or some worries, you've got people that can understand and relate to it, can actually give you some value rather than just laugh at you and tell you to stop doing what you're doing. I mean, for example, my parents were definitely not risk takers. They were like, get a job, work there for 40 years and get a state pension and save your money for a rainy day. And it's like, they've got all this money now, they're retired and they're not spending it. So what was the point? But, you know, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. When I turned around to them and said, you know, at 22 years old, I want to run my own business, and this is how much money I need to start it up. This is where I'm going to go and borrow that money from. And it was very difficult for a 23-year-old with no track record to borrow money so soon after the 2008 crash. But we managed it in small amounts from various different places. But they were like, oh, but you're going to lose the house if it goes wrong, and all this risk, and it's, oh, don't you want to get a job? And I'm like, well, no. So like, if you open any business or take any risk and you explain that to someone that is not risk averse and they're not entrepreneurial, they're not going to understand anyway. And I think that's the majority of people. And like, yeah, with social media nowadays, and there's so much more opportunity, like Forex, like drop shipping, SMMA. There's a lot of young people that are doing really well and making like 10 grand a month. And, you know, only when they do it and they prove it to their parents, that their parents go, I'm really proud of you. But at the start, they're thinking, why are you doing this? You're wasting your time doing all this online from your bedroom, you know, doing research on your laptop till 2 a.m. every night, when you could go and get a job at Starbucks and work your way up the ladder. And I think it's just a lot of the older generation, how they were brought up. Obviously, they didn't have social media, so they only knew the people on their street, or the people they worked with. So when you come to someone and say, well, I could have, if that's what you want, I could have a Porsche on the drive in 12 months by doing this. A lot of people's parents especially are like, no, you can't, like, that's not possible, because they've not seen it. But like, Forex is no different to any other business. There's a lot of money in this world. Like, you go for a 1 hour drive in most parts of the world, you'll see, you know, expensive cars almost every 10 seconds. And how do you know what they do? I mean, they're probably not all Forex traders, but if they have a business selling scaffolding to builders and there's enough supply and demand, the business owner will be very financially successful, and he may drive a Lamborghini from that. But how many years has that business owner away from social media, and you don't know who he or she is, have they put, you know, they could have worked their ass off for 20 years before they got to a point where they're making 1-2 million a year. And now you're seeing them driving a Lamborghini around town, and it's the first time you've ever seen them. And then a lot of people will say, well, it's all right for some, but they haven't seen the journey they've been through. So, you know, and again, like 20 years earlier, if that person said, I'm going to open my own construction company, or I'm going to sell bagels on the high street for the next 20 years, and I'm going to become a millionaire from it. If you say that to the wrong person, which is not your fault, you never know who the right person is, but they could just laugh at you and say it's not possible, which is why you just got to listen to yourself. It becomes harder when your partner doesn't believe in you, or if you're living with your parents and they don't believe in you and they've put a roof over your head, which is why I think, especially for the younger traders out there, it's important to do something for income alongside trading. Like, go get a part-time job, go work some night shifts, work at the weekend when the market's closed, do something so that you're bringing some income in, which will, one, take the emotional edge off of earning money through requirement, but earning money out of opportunity for yourself. But also it stops the naysayers. You know, I'm going to learn how to trade, and don't worry, because I'm paying you rent, or I'm earning money, I'm putting food on the table with my day job. And that's why I didn't sell my fitness business until I was consistent with my trading, because I knew that I'd be taking such a risk by doing that, that I could end up, with, you know, a decent amount of money after selling the business, but that might only last me 1 year if I've got no income. So it'd be pretty silly to do that. So, you know, it definitely leads into the other topic of, you need, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people have said this as well, that you really need to do something else alongside trading. One, because trading is boring if you're doing it correctly, because you're following systems and processes to a T every single time. It's like if you work in sales, you've got a script. And if you follow the script, which is the same script every day, you'll be the best salesperson on your team. But if you divert from the script to make your job more exciting, yeah, you might have a bit more fun, but you'll make less sales. It's the same thing with trading. If you've got a trade plan that works, follow it. Doesn't matter how boring it is, you need to follow it, because if you don't, then you'll start to make mistakes and bad habits, and your results will follow that same pattern.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I've never heard that one before. That's really good. I think it's exactly like that. I mean, follow something that's tried and tested, something that's been, adjusted over time to be as optimal as possible. And I think that that's just how it is. And that's why when you are a successful trader, it's boring, because you're literally doing the same thing day in and day out. But at the end of the day, it's the same as what you say. I think it's all emotional and psychological. So if you affect the people around you in a way that causes them to be negative towards you, that's going to affect you emotionally and psychologically. And then you're going to bring that into whether you're doing a business or whether you're trading. You're going to bring that back into that. And obviously we know with trading, it's hyper important to be emotionally stable. And if your parents said, hey, what you're doing is a waste of time, you're going to emotionally, most people, even if they're pretty strong emotionally, because of how important those people are to them, it's going to affect them negatively. And I mean, there are a few people that are like, hey, my parents were like, yeah, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it, blah, blah, blah. Really cool for them. But majority don't. And most parents don't. And that's not a negative reflection on them. It's just how they were raised and their growing up and the way that they lived life. Their life experience was definitely not one of somebody who can get rich within a year span of time, which within trading probably unlikely as well, but maybe a year, 2 years, depending on how how disciplined you are and what your mentality is like. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting how things have evolved over time, and I think that things are going to continue to evolve into some kind of whether it will be better or not, it's debatable, but I think that the way that the education is going and the way that content on social media is, I think it's going to help people. But I think at the same time, the caveat to that is that social media, like you said, has created people's, they've shortened their capacity to delay gratification. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems, especially within trading or within business in general. Because how many of those people have you heard that make these huge investments hoping to, make a large-ish return, whether it be a scam or something legitimate that just doesn't work out? And so that's, again, you can't allow emotions, which is greed or fear, to create you to cause you to make decisions that are detrimental to you. What I found was pretty interesting is that you stuck with a lot of the courses that you took, and you kind of maximized your time within those courses that you took and those communities you were part of. And I think that that's something that a lot of people watching this could learn from. I think that joining for a month or even 2 months is not sufficient, not only to potentially become successful with whatever strategy or methodology they're teaching, but also to extract whatever knowledge is in there or lessons you need to learn before, even if you do need to go to another community. But in your opinion, what do you think is the number one thing that someone can do in the trading space to increase their chances of success?
I would say just think long term. Like, whether maybe this is the first video you've watched ever in terms of anything Forex related. It's probably not likely, but if that is, then if this is going to take you 3 to 5 years, is that like what, as a percentage, how much of your lifespan is that? And what are you going to do instead? What's the alternative? That's a good one to say. Like, what is the alternative? What are you going to go and do instead? I used to say that a lot. Again, I'll revert back to my personal training business. If someone said, well, £1,000 for personal training for a year is a lot of money. And I'm thinking, well, what's the alternative? You've told me you've joined 17 gyms and you quit after 30 days because you're trying to do it on your own and you need some help. So you're going to have to pay a little bit more, but you'll get way more value from it. It's the same with trading. You could dive through YouTube, there's probably millions of free YouTube Forex content out there. But on your own, are you going to be disciplined enough to actually open your laptop every day and consistently learn from it and take notes? Or are you going to somehow miraculously filter through all the noise and find enough information from someone that works? Versus if you paid someone, one, psychologically, you're more committed to whatever you've paid for, especially if it's a large sum of money, or you're saying, okay, my time horizon is 6 months, 12 months, I'm going to dedicate myself to that. And also just having that patience and that persistence, that's the amount of effort that I know it's going to take. And I know that if I consistently do it a few hours every day, like even if it's 5 days a week, take a couple of days a week off, that's fine. But if you do it consistently enough over a large enough period of time, you'll get there. And that really is the deal breaker between someone successful and not in anything, I believe. Whether it's you're trying to get a better body, what do you need consistently? You need to consistently eat well, consistently trade. If you want to open a business, you can't just rent a shop and then just stay at home and not do anything. You've got to drive people to the shop. And it's the same with trading. You've got to keep pushing until you've learned a strategy that works and that resonates with you and your lifestyle and fits the bill. And then you've got to consistently work on your emotions and your discipline and your psychology, especially like we've just had the conversation that you're getting negative comments a lot of the time from people that aren't in the Forex space, that don't understand what or why you're doing it. And so you're already battling from that fear and greed inside of you, but now you're also battling the comments externally as well. So you've got to be so laser focused and not think, oh, I've got to prove these people wrong. I'm going to, make $5,000 today. Like, prove them wrong by how consistent you are over a number of years. And then what you'll find is the people that doubted you for 2 to 3 years, 3 years down the line are saying, congratulations, I'm really glad that you carried on doing it. I'm really proud of you. Hold on a minute, you're the one that told me to stop doing this after 12 months. And that's a good feeling to have, that satisfaction, more than anything else, I think.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the best feelings. But in terms of, being consistent, I think that's also one of the most difficult things. Obviously to get to that point of the naysayers, realizing, hey, I was wrong. This guy actually did make it happen. But obviously consistency makes it happen. I think in your case, having the fitness businesses running, as well as obviously your experience in that field, was a big credit to your trading, because your mindset was already in that that lane of thought of consistency, small changes every day, working on something and chiseling away at it. Do you think that benefited you greatly?
Term vision of running a business and knowing that you're not going to be a successful business owner in 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. It's very rare to have someone that's an overnight success. It happens, but less than 1%. Knowing that if you consistently do something well, following systems and processes with discipline and patience over a period of 3 to 5 years, you can build a really successful business. On the flip side, there was definitely some elements that do not transfer into trading, where on a day-to-day micro basis, I knew that if I went into work that day and I was the one picking up the phone and I said, I'm going to make 100 phone calls today, I knew that volume created results. I knew that I would have more conversations with more people and I would help more people to start their weight loss journey or whatever they want to do, because that's what you're doing. You're helping people. Yes, it's sales. Sales is not a dirty word. You're helping people do something that they want to do anyway, that they can't do on their own. But, me coming home from doing 7 or 8 hours of that, I can't then say, right, I'm going to open up TradingView and I'm going to make 100 trades, knowing that by volume creates results. It doesn't. It has the opposite effect. In fact, with trading, less is more. The discipline and the long-term macro time horizon is identical to business, but the micro thought process is very different. That, okay, the more trades you open doesn't necessarily mean the more money you'll make. It's more about high quality and wait for the market to come to you. Why? Because you don't control the candlesticks. when you're at work, you control how many phone numbers go through the phone and how many emails go out. You're in control of that, but you're not in control of the market. We have to wait for the market to come to us, for those confluences to stack and align together. And then you're essentially hopping on a train and then letting probabilities play out that the train is driving in the direction that you were hoping that it would drive in. So it is very different in that case. But yeah, in terms of it taking me 4 to 5 years to become consistent, I had that long-term perspective, and I didn't mind if it took me another 2 or 3. I'd still be doing it right now.
And then in terms of your psychological development as you started trading, obviously we know that that's really where a lot of people have an inflection point in their journey, is when they start to really work on their psychological edge, so to say, within trading. Did you find that the more you grew in your emotional and psychological strength, the better the results you got?
Definitely, yeah. Like, the more experience, the more skin in the game, you're going to learn more about not only the markets, but you're going to learn more about yourself. And that's just correlates with general life. Like, the more conversations you have, the more years you spend on the planet, the more experiences you go through, the more you learn, the wiser you become. You can accelerate that by reading books. And I've never been a book reader. Like, trust me, like, was not academic in school at all. I don't think I ever read a book from start to finish till I was like 25 because I was never interested in the subjects I was learning at school. But then once I started getting into business and I started buying business books, things about sales, the art of persuasion, human psychology, those are topics that interested me. And I knew also that I'm not just reading a book to find out about a make-believe story, but I'm actually reading and investing my time into knowledge that can serve me, maybe not right away, maybe not in 4 weeks, but over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I can learn some really valuable skills, things like sales, things like psychology. And most books talk about the same techniques, just in different ways teaching it. And those kind of topics do really transfer very well into trading. There's obviously some really great books about trading that will help with the perspective of probabilities, like Mark Douglas talks about. And then you've got things like the chimp paradox that talks about the psychological implications of thinking positively, thinking negatively, atomic habits, about rituals, processes, systems, and habits, and how you can stop doing bad habits by creating new good habits and putting systems in place. And all these things, I went through that journey, and I started really excelling as a person, as well as things like an entrepreneur and a trader, by reading these books and learning this over time.
Right. What I want to talk about as well, to change the subject, is prop firms. So when you discovered prop firms, obviously you've been in the industry for over 8 years, and that's I think maybe FTMO started creeping around that, sort of similar towards the beginning of there, but I don't think prop firms were that big of a deal when you start. Yeah, exactly. I think they probably only started really blowing up around probably 2018, maybe, around about there. What do you think that does to the opportunity of trading? And a lot of traders, myself included, really made a mindset switch once they discovered prop firms, because trading a small little personal account, because let's be honest, when we're starting out, we don't have that much to invest, most of us, and we're not, if you're smart, you're not going to invest a ton of money into your personal account when you're starting out, because psychologically you're most likely not going to be able to handle it. But prop firms do something very different for you, in that you can leverage what they're giving you, the opportunity that they're giving you, in a massive way. Did you find that it not only created a massive mindset shift for you, or were you one of the ones that were already kind of all right on your feet before then?
So in my opinion with prop firms and how it impacts traders psychologically, it's not so much changing your mindset, but having a second mindset for when you're trading them. Because when you're trading a personal account, whether that's $1,000 or $50,000, there's no restrictions on your drawdown and things like risk. And, you know, you'd have to be risking a hell of a lot to blow that account. I've never blown an account because I've never in my life risked more than 1% per trade. And that's something, quite fortunately, in the first educator I ever came across, that's something that they instilled in me. Like 1% risk, never risk more than that, never enter a trade without a stop loss. That was something I was like, okay, I'm never going to do that. Thanks for teaching me that. It cost me £15,000 to learn that one thing. But yeah, in terms of like prop firms, you've typically got anywhere between 8 and 12% max drawdown, something like daily drawdown of like 4 to 6%, something typical like that. And what we had for many years was a 30-day time limit, which only very recently most prop firms are doing no time limit now, which is brilliant, especially those trading slower paced, higher time frame. So for me, it's more of a case of I'm teaching my students to have that different mindset, that actually there are some variables that you can control and then some that you can't. One is make sure that before you take a prop firm challenge, that you have learned a strategy for long enough so that you can read all of the rules off the back of your mind without actually reading it from bullet points, and know that you're not going to make many, if any, mistakes. Like if I were to ask someone, what are your trade rules right now? I want them to, without hesitation, to tell me in all cases, right? To have that confidence, but also to have enough data, whether that be live trading or through backtesting, to have that true inner confidence that not just 1 week or 1 month, but over years, that holds a high enough strike rate that they can pass challenges, especially with no time limit now, and not go over very often a max drawdown period. It also means that you've got to really think about your risk management strategy. Like it doesn't really matter what strategy you use, but how many pairs are you trading on that one account? Like if you're trading 5 or 6 currency pairs and you've got a max drawdown of 10%, and you take 2 losses per pair on all of those pairs in a month, it's only 2 losses per pair, but you've already lost the funding challenge because you've reached those drawdown rules. Whereas if you're trading those 5 or 6 pairs on a personal account and you hit 10, 12% drawdown in 1 week, but then the second week you're up 35% because you're letting probabilities play out over those 5 or 6 currency pairs, then obviously you're in profit. But you can't do that. It's a different mindset. It's a very different risk management strategy with prop firms. So we recommend 1, max 2 currency pairs on account. And if you are trading 2, it might be better to risk 0.5%. So really your max exposure if trading both pairs in a single day is 1%. And it's thinking about things like daily equity as well. There's quite a few prop firms that do like floating equity. So if you're running 3%, it comes back to take you out for -1. You really lost what, about 3 or 4%, not just the 1. So you got to be really careful about that. But most don't do that. It's just having that real extra careful strategy, which isn't just something to teach traders, but something specific for prop firm trading, just to be aware of. And those are the things that you can control. You've also got the second element of the things that you can't control. Things like you could start a challenge in a really good week or in a really good month, and you could pass within 3 days thinking, this is brilliant. I'm going to pass every challenge as quick as I did this one. And that can be a good thing because you pass it quick. It could be a bad thing because it might instill the wrong perspective and bad habits. Similarly, you could start a challenge on a bad month or a bad week where you enter immediately a drawdown period. And that can be reduced based on your risk exposure, your management rules, how many pairs are you trading, things like, are you following pro trend or are you countering every trend, you're catching falling knives all the time, what's your emotional stability, lots of these things, right? But of course, you can't control the fact that you might start a challenge or a verification on a week where there's less opportunity and where probabilities are not in your favor. And you've got to have that perspective that, okay, I'm never going to put one prop firm challenge or verification or live account on a pedestal. And this goes back to the YouTube video that I did only yesterday on my personal YouTube channel with Elijah that had a 50,000 funded account, and he took 4 or 5 payouts from that, totaling over $13,000. So he made tons of profit from a relatively small account, plus he got his challenge fee back, and he put that money into a 200K. He passed the 200K, he made some more money, he hit a drawdown period, and he lost the 50K. He's still got the 200. So he's no longer emotional. What's he doing now? He's got the 200 and he's doing another 200. He passes that. Now he's 400K funded. So what happens next? Is he going to put those accounts on a pedestal and think, I'm going to keep these for the next 10 years and make loads of money from it? No, it's the wrong mindset, because they are, statistically set up for the trader to fail with the drawdown rules and, max allocation, etc., like that. So what he's doing now is he's doing a 400K. So if he loses one of those 200Ks for whatever reason, whether it's in his control or out of his control, then he's still got something else. And just see them as tools is something that I like to tell my traders. Like, if a plumber's going to work, he's not going to take one spanner. He's going to take a whole bag. And he's probably going to take some spares in the van. So if something breaks, he's always got a backup. And it's the way that I feel traders should see as prop firm accounts. So you pass one, okay, brilliant. How did you pass it? Make sure you've journaled everything and follow the same rules for the next one. Go and pass another one. Use that refunded challenge fee to go and invest in another one. Don't spend it on a monthly installment on a Mercedes. Go and invest it into something else and let that money grow for you. And just keep going until you can max out that allocation. And if you've managed to do that, which not many people do, but if they do, that's great. They go on to another firm and just keep diversifying the risk, because that's what you're doing. You get to a stage where you've got that much funding that, one, you don't care if you lose them, and two, if you've made enough withdrawals and put them into a personal account, that's the end goal. That's what you should really, in my opinion, put on a pedestal, and it's what I did, is to grow your personal account big enough so that you can make enough money that you're happy with taking, so that you're not relying on prop firms anymore. And if you are going to do prop firm challenges, it's only because you want to, not necessarily because you need the capital. And that's my 2 cents around.
No, well, the thing with me is prop firm challenges, I think, are probably one of the best opportunities when it comes to trading, but it can also obviously be detrimental to you. And I guess at the end of the day, anything can basically be turned into gambling if you really have that mindset around it. So you can turn literally any endeavor that you go after into gambling, which is, I guess, kind of what prop firms want you to do. And I guess that's what a lot of people end up doing, is they just end up continually buying more and more and more challenges and blowing them, or they continue trying to get people to pass them with these scams on Instagram, etc., etc. I mean, there's so many different traps you can fall into when it comes to that industry, because I mean it's a whole different alley of potential for scammers. I think as well, but in terms of the prop firm industry itself, I would never have been profitable without prop firms to begin with, because it put me in that mindset, but also because of the leverage it allows you. Because you have to understand that all you're putting on the line to get that $100,000 is $500. Okay, granted, yes, you get 10% of that $100,000. So let's say you're actually kind of playing with $10,000. But if I blow the account, I'm not losing $10,000, I'm losing $500, right? So that kind of leverage is insane. If you think about it, if you divide 10,000 by 500, it's going to be 20,000? It should be 20,000. So you're getting 1 to 20,000 leverage. No, 1 to 2,000, I think. I think it's 2,000. If my maths are right. It's 1 to 2,000 leverage, essentially, to some degree. And for me, that's just like, it's wild, because I would never have been able to put $10,000 into an account and just trade it. Especially when you go into drawdown, because you have to understand, when you go into drawdown on a prop firm account, that's not a real account. That's not real money. You're not worried about it. It's like, hey, if I blow it, I can just get another one. But if you blow your personal $10,000 account, that's $10,000 down the drain, or if you...
Be a fine line in the emotional respect for personal accounts and prop firm accounts, that you can't go too careless and think this, whatever, I don't really care if I blow this. You can't really have that extreme mentality towards it, but at the same time, don't put it on a pedestal. Find some middle ground. Just like being a trader, your emotions should be as neutral as possible. Bring that same neutral mindset to every funding challenge that you take. Unless you're making obviously consistent mistakes, or if you're taking a funding challenge way too soon, you should kind of know deep down, put your ego at the door and know that you took it too soon, go and do some more education first. But still not being emotional about it, being very logical and say, okay, I took it too soon. I need to go back to the drawing board, make sure that I've got a risk management plan in place. I know exactly what my strategy is. I'm doing this. It's all rule-based. And then can go and take another challenge. Not, oh, I failed it. I was hoping to pass in one trade and I've already bought another one. So it's like, it's not putting them on a pedestal, like, oh, I need to pass this, because if you fail and the odds are stacked against you to pass, you're going to be very emotional. But also not be like, oh, I don't care if I lose this too much, because then you'll start taking off-plan trades and forming bad habits. So you got to find that middle ground. And I'm definitely with you that the prop firm industry is welcome. I mean, 8 years ago, could you have gone to the bank and said, can you give me $100,000 so I can trade it? And I'll just give you £500. And if I blow the account, I won't give you that $100,000 back. They're going to say no, they're going to laugh at you. So we didn't really have access to kind of funds or capital at that stage. And back then it was like, let's build a 12 to 24 month personal account of consistent profits, and then somehow go and find an investor that will give us some money to trade. That was what the mindset of a trader was back then, because prop firm industry either didn't exist or was unheard of. So yeah, it's very welcome. And just like with trading in general, people have just got to have the right mindset and be guided properly and thoroughly with expectations and the right perspective going into it.
I think it also just comes down to having a plan, because at the end of the day, if you are getting the account, also not just a plan, but a long-term plan, like you say, because you could, for example, go into it and say, hey, I want to get this $200,000 account and make, $30,000, $40,000 out of it, and go out and buy that Mercedes, put a deposit down on a Lamborghini, whatever it is you want to do. You've got to have a long-term plan. You can't just expect, the next withdrawal to be the thing that really puts you on the path of being successful, because withdrawals come and withdrawals go, right? You could get that first withdrawal potentially and then just lose everything. That being said, I mean, that's also, once again, pretty low possibility in general. If you look at the prop firm statistics, it's really, really low. But I mean, that's just because there's so few people that are able to develop their mentality to the point of, thinking in probabilities. And I think that's why the statistics are so bad, and that's why so few, I think it's literally 2 or 3%, if you work it out, actually get to a payout. And I think it's just because the human brain is not designed to think in probabilities.
There's definitely that. I think also it's down to the fact that like an FTMO challenge, for example, or whoever, it's so accessible. Like, most people have $250 to spend on a 50K challenge, whether they work and they put that money in, or they borrow it off family and friends, or wherever. It's very easily accessible. And also, not many people are really have the patience to go out and learn trading thoroughly enough and build that consistency around that strategy that they've chose to trade and have that track record before going and purchasing that challenge. I think because it's so accessible, and because the general population mindset is lack of patience, too many people are buying challenges and failing them way before they should even be buying them. And I think that is mostly why the statistics are so bad, because even the most veteran trader can take a challenge and lose it, because you've got external forces like probabilities playing out, you've got market cycles, you've got good weeks and bad weeks. Which week are you going to choose to do the challenge or the verification can really depend the outcome, but also the rules that come with it. And so, like, someone that's not educated, what chance have they got? They just don't really have any chance at all. So I think that's mostly why the statistics are so bad. But I wouldn't let that give the prop firm industry a bad name at all, because I completely openly welcome it. It's just guiding people the right way to use them is the key.
I think, but like I say, I think a lot of people just treat it as a lottery ticket, essentially. They're treating prop firms as lottery tickets, and that's just purely based on how the human brain works. Like I said, we're not thinking in statistics. Why do people buy lottery tickets to begin with? Why would you go through the effort to go to a store and buy a lottery ticket that you know you have a 1 in 5 million chance of winning? Statistically, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your energy and your oxygen walking to the store or even driving to the store to buy that lottery ticket. But in our human brain, it's like, I could be the one. I could be the one to win. I could be the one to pass this challenge and make $100,000. Why not? But if you look statistically, that's never going to happen in a million years. If you are just, for example, gambling, if you're just literally gambling on this one trade to pass your evaluation, you're gambling on the next trade to pass your evaluation, rather than approaching it statistically. Hey, only a small percentage of people are passing and taking withdrawals. What are they doing? Let's do some research. Let's find these people. Let's find these people on YouTube that are doing it. And I think that that's the key thing. And I also think that that's what prop firms brought to us. It brought a way of verifying people's results, because I am more likely to learn from somebody, if I'm coming into this game, from somebody who can prove that they've had prop firm payouts, and from reputable prop firms, because as we know, there's so many new prop firms coming out on the scene at the moment, like a new one every single day, and who knows what could happen. At the end of the day, when it comes to, for example, Forex brokers, we know of many that have given, fake withdrawals, or they've just literally paid out traders to say that they're trading on that platform and made this much money. But with prop firms, especially the reputable ones, people that have withdrawn from them consistently, obviously they're doing something right? And I think that also guides us in a way of looking for education and mentorship. In your opinion, what other things what other things could people look out for when they're looking to find sources of income and ways to learn trading?
You mean like ways to supplement just paying the bills, which allows them to learn how to trade and reduce the amount of emotional turmoil they'll go through when they're not making money from trading?
No, so what ways could people, what different criteria could people use to filter out the people that are really trading and making money and that they can learn from? For example, people that are getting payouts from prop firms and they've got consistent results. What other ways can they use to filter out people that are going to teach them nonsense, essentially?
Well, the proof's in the pudding. It's all about results. Again, I can go back to when I had the fitness business. One thing was, how can I prove that I have a service that can help people to consistently feel fitter and have more energy, lose weight, drop a dress size? Firstly, I'll help them to do that. And then when they do it, I'll ask them if they can do some kind of case study or testimonial, and half the time they're just happy to do it without even me asking. And it's like I say, if I run a restaurant, I'd want people to go to TripAdvisor and rave about how good the service was and how good the food was. So if you're looking at joining a community, the first place to look at is the community members, the people that are in that community, and are they actually seeing results? Because if they're not, then obviously there's a red flag. We've had in the past 2 months way over about 130, 135 funded traders. And that's an incredible amount in an incredibly short space of time. And they are all trading the same strategy. Yes, some may be trading different pairs, and some may be in different parts of the world. Some might trade London only, some might trade New York only, and some might trade both. Some might say, I'm going to take every trade that's possible, and others might filter it to focusing on pro trend moves only. But to have that many funded traders in a short space of time, using the same rule-based strategy, that's the best way to see that results. Because if that many people can do it, then so can you.
But I mean, that being said, there are ways to skew, results. For example, like, I don't know, there's certain people that get their way to get kind of fake testimonials. So it's difficult to some degree to find, like a mentor that's going to be completely honest and open with you. And I think a lot of people have, a pretty good way to weed people out, in terms of, their energy or whatever it is. But I guess it's just their body language and how they are and how honest they are as well. But what kind of, like you said, what kind of red flags should people look out for?
Things like just kind of what kind of advice are they putting out there? Is the advice that they're putting out there sustainable? Like, again, we said earlier on in the interview that if your mentor is saying, I'm happy to risk 5 to 10% on a trade, and that way I can double my account in 10 trades, it's like, that seems like maybe too good to be true. And if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and you should follow your gut. Whereas if someone's saying, okay, actually, you can't achieve success in 30 days. I'm not going to just lie to you. It's going to take much longer than that. You're going to have to go and do years worth of backtesting. It's not going to take you years to do it, but you need to collate years worth of data versus someone that says, yeah, once you've watched 5 videos, you can go and take a challenge. Again, what sounds too good to be true? And if you can find a coach or a mentor that is saying things that make more logical sense over a large enough period of time, and they're thinking in terms of months and years, not days or weeks, then you're on the right track. And you'll see people come and go that are on the quick fix, really low fees for a lifetime, get payouts like this really easily. It's like, well, is it easy? And is it a short-term thing? Is it a quick fix? Can you really do that? Or what is the more long-term sustainable route? And telling people really how it is.
Yeah, I think literally it's just, you can tell when people are just bullshitting you, but you can also, there's certain red flags that you can really look out for. Once again, if you feel like people are trying to sell more of a lifestyle than they are trying to sell actual education on how to attain the lifestyle, then it's just a no-brainer. But the thing is, a lot of people just have such a warped view of success. People have such a warped view of how to attain success because they're so used to getting things instantly, gain instant gratification. But back to the topic of success, in your mind, and I'm sure it's changed potentially to some degree, what was the vision that you had for, obviously the business you ran as well as trading? What was the vision you had for your life that kept you motivated through the times of drawdown and allowed you to persevere, essentially? What was the vision you saw for your life? What did it look like to you?
Freedom and opportunity first, because if you can have those two things, then you can have pretty much choices to do anything you want to do. Yes, I've had nice cars in the past, and when I've been young and wanted something exciting, I ended up buying a Porsche that I waited nearly 12 months on order for, and I enjoyed it, and I've had really, really nice, exciting cars in the drive, and it gives you pleasure, but that pleasure is short-lived. And then you soon end up selling the car. What's more long-term is thinking, again, in decades, or when you have children as you get older. And I've got 4 children now, and I feel definitely the more children I've got, the more pressure I have felt to provide for my family, and not just to provide the next meal, but to provide like more generational wealth. And I'm not just going to give my children money and say, here you go. It's more of a case of, I've seen it firsthand that my children will do what I do and not what I say. And I've started to realize this with my eldest daughter, who's nearly 14. And I've started to have the conversation with her that you've only got a few years left at school. What is it you want to do when you finish? And she's already told me she wants to get into things like streaming and YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is brilliant, because she's obviously seen me take my fate into my own hands, and mum as well. We've both been self-employed for the past 15 years. And I think it just shows the capability of doing that. It's more normal to her. So she's not, and none of my children are going to be like, oh, we've got to save for a rainy day, don't take a risk, get a job. Like if they want to get a job, that's fine. I want them to be happy. And if they can enjoy working a job, that's absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But also to know that there's much more to life. And that's something that I always had in the back of my mind. I never had any like specific mood board on the side saying I'm going to have this and this and this by this age. I never had that. But, and I spoke about this with Trading Nut, where I said, even from a younger age, I always knew that there was something more to this, whatever this was. And I've always looked around and gone, yeah, I would never be happy just settling for that. And the more books I read, the more podcasts I watch, and the more conversations like these that I have, the more it's made me realize that you only get one chance of life, and you may as well take a risk, because it's more risky not taking a risk and living with regret when you've got loved ones in their 80s and 90s. One of the last things that they say is, oh, I wish I did this when I was younger. If that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning and to get you to go and take a risk, I don't know what will. So it's just a mixture of those things, really. Like I didn't really have like a set vision other than having freedom to do what I wanted. Because don't get me wrong, I've worked jobs before. I worked in supermarkets. I was washing dishes at 19 years old. I've talked about this before. I used to be very shy. I used to not say a word all day. There's no way I would have been able to do this 15 years ago. No way. But I've pushed myself through my limits over and over again, and that's allowed me to take the next step. And I think that's really why I don't have much of a specific long-term vision, because I just look at the next step and like, what can I do next? And if you can look at that as actionable steps, then your long-term future is looked after, because that's your discipline, that's your routines and your systems and your habits. Like, what can I do in the next week that's going to benefit the next month? And what can I do in the next month that's going to benefit the next year? And if I can do that, then that's going to look after the next decade. And it's just having that mindset again. Everything kind of intertwines and links with each other. But knowing that you only live once at the end of the day. And when you've got children, you have to set an example. You can't just tell them what to do. You've got to do it, because they'll copy most of the time. And yeah, just don't live with regret when you're older. There's a big world out there, and the truth is you need money to experience it, whether you believe you do or not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of the mainstream narrative in the media now is, oh, money doesn't buy you happiness, money isn't everything. But that's actually kind of, to some degree, a detrimental message to have, whereby they're going to the extreme of saying that happiness is essential, money is not essential to happiness, which, yes, is true. But in terms of living an actual life of substance, you're going to need money to do it to some degree in most cases. And also it's going to create an environment of, firstly, uncertainty and stress in terms of if you don't have enough of it. So you could say that money is a little important. Money isn't necessary for you to be happy, but having none of it will probably make you kind of unhappy. So it's important.
And I've had financial difficulty, and I've been in a position where I've got an abundance of money, and I choose the abundance every time.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what personal problems you have, or what health problems you have, or what family problems you have, or what job you work, or anything else, it makes a huge difference having money than not having money. Because if you're already stressed, you don't want the added pressure of, but what am I going to do when I can't pay the bills? And that's what's always just pulled my finger out and gone, okay, I'm going to go take that risk. I could have been that 18-year-old that didn't say a word for the rest of my life. I could have easily still been washing dishes, not saying a word, and just, not taking any risks. But I decided to not be that person anymore. I knew that there was more to it than that. I knew I was very lacking in confidence, and I had no one as a role model to guide me. I had to learn through experience, and I had to do it through hardship myself and put myself in very uncomfortable positions, which is what forced me to become a personal trainer, because I had to then go and teach people. I had to talk to people. And luckily, I don't think it was really planned, but the fact that I was helping people and I was getting compliments from them to say, thank you for helping me lose weight, I feel so much better about myself. That's what gave me satisfaction and gave me some purpose. And I think that's part of why I'm an educator now in Forex, because it was instilled into me as a young age when I had my fitness business to help people with their fitness. No longer was interested in that route. It's nothing wrong with changing your mind in terms of industry, but I still want to help people. And there's nothing better than having a student say, thank you very much. I'm spending less time at the charts. I'm spending more time with my family. I'm actually consistent. For the first time I've gained funding, or the first time after multiple funding accounts have actually taken a payout. All these things that this feedback, you just can't beat it. And obviously if I'm trading maybe 1 or 2 hours a day, what am I going to do with the rest of my time? I'm an opportunist. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm an opportunist, and there are always going to be things, as long as I maintain a work-life balance, because I'm a big advocate of that. I've got 4 children. I want to be there for them. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, weekends, holidays. I'm definitely, a family man. But at the same time, I'm very productive and I'm very driven. So I want to make sure that I can build that generational wealth and look back on my life selfishly when I'm 87, 92 years old, if I live that long, and say, I'm proud of what I did financially. I've built some kind of a legacy, hopefully, and my children don't resent me for whatever reason. And I think those are the 3 things that keep driving me forwards.
And how do you maintain that work-life balance? Because you got 4 kids and you probably are pretty damn busy. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, just time blocking. Like, honestly, time blocking is the thing. And it's not easy, because you will get resistance from family members when plans don't work out. But just planning in advance, like sharing a family diary. Like, me and my partner, we share the same calendar. So when she's got something booked in and I've got something booked in, we know that it's not going to stomp on each other. Like, my partner is a content creator and she's an interior designer. She's a photographer. We hire the house out to people. They come and, that's another income stream I've not spoken about. People rent my house. They pay us money so they can sell their products, rather than doing a mock-up studio somewhere in London. And that's one of her strings of her bow, right? So sometimes I'll either be confined to my office here, which I don't mind, in the back cave, or I'd go out and, work from a coffee shop or take my kids out. But I always make sure, like last week, I was trading from my phone all week and I ended the week something like 6 or 7% up. I didn't open my laptop once. And I told my community that I'm going to be hopping in and out of Discord, but I will be out of bounds. And that's why it's good to have more than one coach in the community. Tom and Callum, they looked after the community in my absence. And today Tom's off, so me and Callum are, controlling the ship. But just like finding that balance, it doesn't come overnight either. It's like similar to trading. You've got to go through enough experience to know what works for the family. Like I take every Thursday daytime, I take off now, and me and my partner go out for lunch, because I've found, because I've got children and 4 of them, that if I work Monday to Friday, I can't dedicate my time to my partner at the weekend, because that's children time. And it's either children or partner. It's not both. In my opinion, you can't, because even when you're with your partner, it's the children that take all the focus, especially the young ones. So it's like weekend time is like extended family and children. Thursday is like couple day. You could call it date day. It's not really a date night because the children are at home every night, but we go out for lunch or we go shopping or something. And it's just important to time block everything. You time block your trading. You got your London kill zone, your New York kill zone. If you've got work or a business, you time block the tasks that you're doing. And I think you should do the same with your family. Like, never be afraid to use a calendar or a diary. Some people think that's very OCD, but for me, it's efficiency. And if you've not got efficiency, then you're just living in chaos.
Yeah, 100%. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask one last question. If you had to literally hop in a time machine right now, go back 8 years and talk to yourself and gave yourself any word of advice, on something you would do differently, or something that you think would help you as a trader at that time, what would it be?
Follow your gut, because your gut tends to be right, and work with speed, but have patience at the same time. Know that whatever I do, I'm not going to look for immediate results any less than a year, but I have to take action right now, because every day that I leave it, I'm getting a day older and I'm losing a day of opportunity. Every week that goes by was a week that I could have been putting into, whether it's your trading, your business, your career, your family, your health, your fitness. And just to have that perspective that if your gut's telling you that maybe the way that you're trading doesn't fit with your lifestyle, is it causing too much friction in your family? Are you spending 6 hours staring at the charts? Maybe you work from home and you're not getting too much of your work done because you're trading too much. Or maybe you're at work physically in an office somewhere and you're worried about your boss catching you on trading view. Things like that. Like I say, our strategy isn't for everyone. I'm not about to say that, but it's definitely beneficial spending less time with the charts by moving up a few time frames and making it more rule-based if you don't have or don't want 5 or 6 hours a day to trade. And if your gut's telling you that, then you need to change something. Just because you've learned something and put 1 or 2 years into something doesn't necessarily mean you need to stick to that. Like I could have kept hold of my fitness business that I did no longer enjoy running, just because I'm the one that founded it. And I'm the one that literally painted the walls on day one. And I was the cleaner, the fitness trainer, the manager, the salesperson. I was everything at the start. And I built it up to a point where I had staffing infrastructure in place. And I was basically the director in the end. But I listened to my gut and I sold the business and left my ego at the door. And I moved on thinking, well, this is what my gut is telling me. I need to go full into trading and see what opportunities that brings. And the extra time that I've got, I could do other things. And then this time 2 years ago, I didn't think I'd be a community owner. I've talked about this before. I think I said this on the podcast with Trading Net as well, that I didn't actually think about opening the community until I was really seriously in legals with selling the fitness business. And the only reason I did it is because, again, coming from a background of helping people and knowing how satisfying it is getting these positive messages from people that you have directly or indirectly helped. But it was because I was getting so many requests from people every day because I was doing well from trading. And yes, at the time it was lower time frame entry, like I said. And I was like, well, I want to be able to help people, but I'm not going to say no or ignore messages. But I thought, well, I can't get back to 50 to 100 messages a day. And if it keeps growing this way, it'd be an awful lot more. I can't work for free. So why not open a community? And that's how that started. So yeah, that's what I would do. I wouldn't really do much different, but it's just, I think it's just the mindset that I already had, but just accelerate it even more. Follow the gut, have a long-term approach to success, but think fast.
And then also, what do you think within that whole journey? What do you think was the most significant inflection point for you? Where did it really start to click for you that things are really, you know, I mean, in a lot of people's journeys, they have that specific moment where they're like, wow, this is happening. This is the dream, the dream of being a successful trader is starting to play out. Where was that for you?
I got to a point where I had like 6 months of consistent profits in my trading. And it was almost like I'd not realized it because I was so subconscious in everything I was doing and so systemized and so routine driven that, yes, I'm journaling all my trades, but I don't at the end of the week go and look at months and say, oh, where am I? But I had a reflection moment where I went, I'm just going to open my journal and look at where I am in my trading. And I was like, I've got way over 6 months of consistency here. And it was really at that point where I went, well, if I can do that, then I can be consistent for a year or I can be consistent for a lifetime. And I kept pushing. And that was really a light bulb moment as like a moment of reflection. I suppose you could say I thought I'd made it at the time. Wasn't extreme as that, but it was definitely a reflection moment. On the periods leading up to that through my journey, there was no light bulb moment in terms of, oh, I've learned this about a candlestick or a liquidity, or there was no technical light bulb moment. I think some of that is because I am quite a slow learner. I don't mind admitting that. So some of you might pick this up much quicker than I did. and I suppose take that as a positive. The fact that I'm not actually that smart, I'm not clever at all. I did struggle in school. I was not academic, but I'm very much practical. I was very good at art. I was quite good at sport, and I think that reflects into trading quite a lot. And yeah, just keep going. Like, don't give yourself a time frame and say, right, by Christmas, if I'm not consistent, I'm going to throw in the towel. That's the worst thing to do, because you're going to put more pressure on yourself to prove yourself wrong, that you're going to force things. And at the start, I did that, but then after about 2 or 3 years, I stopped doing that. I wasn't moving the goalposts anymore. I wasn't even setting them. I was like, oh, it'll take as long as it takes, and I'll just base it on how I feel. If it takes me 10 years and I'm still struggling, then maybe I'll revisit what I'm doing at the time. But it never took me that long. And then you'll have this moment where you'll just sit back and you'll reflect and you'll go, hold on a minute, I've been so focused on my systems and processes in a good way that I failed to see that I am now consistent.
Was there a moment in time that was the hardest moment for you to deal with in terms of your trading journey? So, was there a huge, for example, obstacle or something, or an instance where you were like, wow, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it happen? Was there anything that's stuck out to you in that regard?
Sounds like you would have had them yourself. I think every trader goes through it. You can't avoid it. I think you have to go through almost everything before you come out the other end. And that's a good thing, because experience gives you wisdom. For me, one particular point was just when I was really busy with the business, towards kind of the back end of maybe 2018. And that was the point where kind of my focus and my passion was really drying up for the business. So emotionally, my thought process was, I just want to be a trader. I don't want to do this business anymore. But obviously at that point, I wasn't yet consistent. So you get to that point where you feel like you want to rush the process, but at the same time, you're battling that with patience. You're doing something day in, day out. That's the thing. Like, I think I've said this before. Even though, you could work a 9 to 5 that you hate and you want to quit the job and become a full-time trader, you could be self-employed already and hate what you do. And it's just one of those things. I absolutely loved working in gyms. I loved working out in gyms. That was my life. I kind of found my thing. I was like, I'm going to build my own gym one day. That was my dream. And I did it. And I ran it for like 8-9 years. And then I lost passion. I just found trading. And I was like, this is definitely the path I want to go down. So I ran that business for another 3 or 4 years after that. And obviously COVID came around, and that was very difficult for sure. 2020, that was an interesting time. We had like a record high month followed by a record low month 4 weeks later after lockdown 1. I would say that's quite tricky, and that definitely impacted my trading as well, because it made me think, well, one, I've got less focus on the charts because I've got to put more focus on my business, even though it's closed. The doors are closed because I'm not legally allowed to open them, which was crazy. But my customers were just leaving hand over fist because they had no gym to go to. I'm like, how can I do this? How can I save the business that I've ran for the last decade and put my heart and soul into that's paying the bills? So yeah, that was quite difficult as well. Although things did regulate, the things that we did, I had a good support network around me. I was in a mentorship for fitness businesses. So I was never afraid of paying for education in anything that I did. I actually always had mentors when I had the fitness business. And I went from one mentor to, I had 3 mentors in total in nearly 13 years. And you get to a point where you kind of outgrow the mentor, you learn everything from them, you thank them and appreciate them, and you move on to someone else that knows more. And that's exactly what I did with my fitness business, did the same with trading. So yeah, it was just difficult when you really dislike what you do for a living and you want to be a full-time trader, but you're not quite there yet. You just got to battle with that patience, but it pays off. You just got to go through that journey.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people try to make that step to, full-time trading a little too early, and then it ends up blowing up in their face, and they end up kind of cutting their their journey short. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people. Again, it's a thing of people just don't have the patience to wait it out. And a lot of people really can do a full-time job while trading. So yeah, especially if you've got a higher time frame strategy like the one that is within Evolution Markets, which I'm extremely impressed by. Yeah, I think overall, I think there's a lot of stuff that we've unpacked here that a lot of people can learn a lot from, and I think that people are going to really, really enjoy hearing about your journey and the things that you've gone through over the last 8 years plus in your journey. And I think a lot of people will find it relatable. So I really appreciate you for coming on, bro, and having a chat with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed it.
To those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode of the Fair Value Podcast. Cheers, everyone. Till next time.